All right, you're here for a focused look, a real deep dive into this upcoming MLS match. Toronto FC versus New York City FC.
That's right.
Forget wading through tons of articles. We've got the concentrated analysis right here.
It's all thanks to the Gamblers Ruin Project and their SmartBet AI tech. This is MLS League version 4.0.3 specifically.
And our job today, pretty simple.
Mhm.
Pull out the key predictions, the most important insights from their report.
Yeah, give you a clear picture of what might actually happen on the pitch.
We know you want the info, like, quick and thorough, but without getting totally bogged down in details, so that's what we're going to do.
Exactly. Think of this as your fast track to understanding what the data is pointing towards for this specific game. And honestly, the way the AI layers different analyses is pretty interesting stuff.
Okay, let's set the stage first. Basics. It's Toronto FC, they're at home.
Against New York City FC, your away team.
Yep. Date is April 26th, 2025.
Oh.
Kickoff is 2:3 p.m. Toronto time at BMO Field.
Got it. Standard afternoon game.
And we even have a bit on the weather. Looks like mostly cloudy skies. Temperature around 59 Fahrenheit, but it'll feel a bit cooler, maybe 56 with the real feel.
Okay, decent spring weather. Any wind.
Yeah, a northerly wind about 12 miles per hour. Gusts could get up to 20 miles per hour. Humidity's 51%.
Noticeable wind then. Chance of rain.
Tiny chance, 22%, but they're predicting basically no accumulation, like 0.00 inches. Lots of cloud cover, though, 89%. But visibility should be fine, about 10 miles.
So probably not a major weather factor, but good context. It's interesting they include it. The report doesn't quite specify, how that feeds the AI, though.
True, but before we get into the AI predictions themselves, we really need to talk about who's actually available to play. Injuries.
Absolutely crucial. Can completely change the dynamic of a match.
Right. So for Toronto FC, midfielder Richie Laria played 2 games. He's out. Muscle injury.
No return date specified?
Nope, not in this report. So that's, potential gap for TFC right there in the midfield.
Yeah, that's a notable absence. Someone they'll definitely miss.
And what about New York City FC? Any issues there?
They've got a couple as well. James Sands, midfielder, played 3 games. He's out. Ankle injury.
Ouch. Do we know when he might be back?
Yeah, the report estimates around July 15th, 2025. So he's out for a while.
Okay, that's significant too.
And there's more. Malachi Jones, a forward for NYCFC, he's got a lower leg injury.
And return date?
Same situation as Laria, no specific date mentioned.
Okay, so both teams are definitely missing pieces. Midfield hits for both, plus a forward for NYCFC.
Exactly. Key absences to keep in mind as we look at the predictions.
So how does this SmartBet AI actually work? How does it take, injuries, stats, everything, and come up with predictions? It sounds pretty complex.
It is, yeah. It's not just one single method. It's really a blend of, let's say, established statistical tools and newer machine learning techniques.
Okay.
The core analysis comes from this SmartBet AI, right? It uses something called Poisson regression, which is basically a statistical way to predict counts, like goals in a match.
Right, I've heard of that.
But it also uses several machine learning models, specifically random forest, gradient boosting, they call it XGBoost here, and a multi-layer perceptron, or MLP.
MLP, that's a type of neural network, right? Like artificial intelligence finding patterns.
Precisely. So it's attacking the prediction problem from multiple angles using different kinds of math and logic.
Makes sense. So what kind of data are these different models actually chewing on?
Good question. The report mentions quite a few key inputs. They use these adjusted Poisson models, bootstrapped ones we'll talk about, to estimate not just the average expected goals, but also the range of likely scores.
Okay.
Then there are dynamic ELO ratings. Think of ELO like a chess rating, but for soccer teams. It goes up when you win, down when you lose, constantly updated.
And these are adjusted for injuries too, you said?
Yes, exactly. Which is important because it gives a more current snapshot of team strength, not just based on past results, but who's actually fit to play now.
Smart. What else?
Well, the usual suspects too. Recent form, measured in points per game, how they've been doing lately. Expected goals, or XG, for and against.
Standard metrics these days.
Yep. Then home versus away advantage, the raw number of injuries each team has, goal efficiency, like how good they are at finishing chances, and even the betting market odds.
Wow, they really are throwing everything into the mix.
Seems like it. And on the machine learning side, they mention using techniques like SME to handle data imbalances, basically making sure the models learn properly even if say draws are less common than wins in the historical data, and optimizing the models with grid search.
Okay, that's getting technical. But the point is they're trying to be thorough.
Very thorough. They even mention using fuzzy matching and Unicode normalization for data cleaning, making sure team names and player names are consistent across different data sources.
Right, data quality is key. Okay, so let's dig into the actual predictions then, starting with those ELO ratings you mentioned. What do the numbers look like?
Okay, so remember, ELO reflects overall team strength based on past results, adjusted for injuries. Toronto FC comes in at 1443.29.
1443.29. Got it. And NYCFC?
New York City FC is a bit higher at 1490.77.
Okay. So roughly a 50-point difference. What does that actually mean in practical terms?
It suggests that, based purely on this ELO system, NYCFC has a slight edge in underlying strength or form coming into this match. Not a massive gap, but it's there in the ratings.
Interesting. All right, let's talk goals. Poisson regression, you said, predicting the number of goals.
That's the one. And based on this method, the prediction is incredibly tight. It expects 1.18 goals for Toronto FC at home.
Okay, just over one goal.
And 1.21 goals for New York City FC away.
Wow, almost identical. So the basic model sees a very, very low-scoring, close game.
Exactly. Statistically, very little separating them in terms of expected goal output according to this specific model.
Now, you also mentioned bootstrap Poisson regression. What does that add? Is it about confidence?
Precisely. The simple Poisson gives a single number, right? The bootstrap method runs the simulation thousands of times, 1,000 times in this case, using the initial prediction as a base.
Okay, like playing the game 1,000 times on paper.
Sort of, yeah. It helps quantify the uncertainty and gives a range of possible outcomes, not just the single most likely average.
So what does that range, that confidence interval, look like for the goals?
Well, the average predicted goals stay the same. 1.18 for home, 1.18 for away in the bootstrap summary.
Wait, the away goals average changed slightly from the first Poisson number.
Ah, good catch. The first number was 1.21 for away. The bootstrap average result summary says 1.18. Slight discrepancy there, but the key is the range.
Okay, what's the range?
For both home and away goals, the predicted average is 1.18, but the 95% confidence interval is between 0.0 and 4.0 goals.
0 to 4 goals for both.
Yep. So while the average prediction is low, just over one goal each, the simulations recognize that, hey, it's soccer. A team could score 0, or they could score up to 4, realistically, based on the model's parameters. It acknowledges that variability.
That makes sense. A 1-1 score seems likely based on the average, but 0-0 or 2-1 isn't out of the question.
Exactly. The report also briefly mentions the underlying regression models, generalized linear models that feed into this. It confirms they used a lot of data, like over 3,000 observations, and considered factors like form, home advantage, XG, injuries, ELO, market odds. Basically, all the stuff we talked about earlier influencing these goal predictions.
Okay, so goal predictions point to a tight, low-scoring game, possibly 1-1, but with room for variation. What about the actual result, win, lose, or draw? That's where the machine learning comes in.
That's right. These models, Random Forest, XGBoost, MLP, are trained specifically to predict the match outcome directly based on patterns in historical data.
And what do they say? Are they agreeing?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. They don't entirely agree.
Oh. Diverging opinions from the AI.
Kind of. The Random Forest model predicts an away win for New York City FC.
Okay, 1 vote for NYCFC.
The gradient boosting model, the XGBoost one, predicts a home win for Toronto FC.
Okay, 1 vote for TFC. What about the third one, the MLP?
The multi-layer perceptron, the neural network, also predicts an away win for NYCFC.
So that's 2 models predicting New York City wins and 1 predicting a Toronto win. No model predicted a draw.
Apparently not, based on the direct output reported here. 2 for away, 1 for home.
That's quite a split, especially when the goal predictions were so close. Does the report say anything about how, good these models usually are, like their accuracy?
It does give some performance metrics. The Random Forest model has an overall accuracy listed as 0.58.
So correct about 58% of the time in the past.
Roughly, yes, on the data set it was tested on. The GBM or XGBoost model has an accuracy of 0.55.
Okay, 55%.
And the MLP model is at 0.50 accuracy.
50%. So none of them are, incredibly accurate. More just better than random chance, perhaps.
Well, predicting soccer is hard. But yes, those accuracies, especially 50-58%, suggest they have some predictive power, but they're far from perfect. The report also gives other metrics like precision and recall, showing how well they identify each specific outcome, but the main takeaway is the split prediction and the reported accuracies.
Okay, so the advanced ML models are giving us conflicting signals, leaning slightly towards NYCFC maybe, but one model strongly disagrees. This is getting complicated.
It shows the challenge, right? Different ways of analyzing the data can lead to different conclusions. But there's one more piece, the Monte Carlo simulation.
Right, you mentioned that, running thousands of virtual games based on the Poisson goal prediction.
Exactly. It takes those goal likelihoods, the 1.10 versus 1.0 averages and their distribution, and simulates the match 10,000 times to see how often each scoreline and overall result occurs. It embraces the randomness.
And what did 10,000 simulated games suggest is the most likely final score?
The single most likely final score from the Monte Carlo simulation is 1-1.
A 1-1 draw. That definitely lines up with the Poisson goal averages we saw earlier.
It does. It seems to be the most frequent result when you simulate based on those expected goal figures.
Does it give probabilities for other scores, too?
Yes. That 1-1 score has a 13.32% probability according to the simulation.
Okay, the most likely, but still only happening about 13% of the time.
Right. The next most likely is 1-0 for the home team, Toronto, at 10.98%.
Uh-huh.
Then it's 0-1 for the away team, NYCFC, at 10.53%, very close.
Wow, yeah.
And then a 0-0 draw comes in at 9.28%. So those four score lines, 1-1, 1-0, 0-0, 0-0, are seen as the most probable outcomes.
All very tight, low-scoring results. Okay, so that's specific scores. What about the overall chances, home win, draw, away win, based on these 10,000 simulations?
Looking at those overall probabilities from the Monte Carlo run, home win for Toronto FC has a 36.46% chance.
Okay, about 36.5%.
The probability of draw is 35.46%.
Whoa, almost identical to the home win chance. That's incredibly close.
It really is. And the away win probability for New York City FC is 28.08%.
So the simulation slightly favors a home win or a draw, with an away win being the least likely of the three, but still very much possible at 28%.
That's the picture the Monte Carlo simulation pants, yes.
Okay. Let's try and pull all of this together now. We've had ELO ratings, goal predictions, conflicting machine learning results, and Monte Carlo probabilities. What's the big takeaway?
I think the main message from the combined analysis is expect a really tight, closely contested match.
Seems undeniable, yeah.
The Monte Carlo simulation, which kind of synthesizes the goal expectancies, gives a slight, very slight edge to a Toronto home win, but the probability of a draw is almost exactly the same.
Right, those 36% to as a 35% numbers.
But then you have the machine learning classifiers throwing a wrench in the works, with 2 out of 3 actually predicting an away win, despite the Monte Carlo suggesting that's the least likely outcome.
That disagreement is definitely the tricky part here.
It is. We also saw the most likely specific score is 1-1, and the raw goal predictions from the Poisson models were virtually tied at around 1.18 goals each.
Low scoring, close game seems to be the theme.
And underpinning all of this, we can't forget those injuries. Laria out for TFC, Sands and Jones out for NYCFC. Those absences could absolutely influence how the game actually plays out compared to these statistical projections.
Definitely. So, okay, wrapping this up for everyone listening.
Yeah.
This deep dive into the SmartBet AI report really points towards a nail-biter between Toronto FC and New York City FC.
Yeah, very close.
The stats, especially from the big simulation, lean just slightly towards a home win or a draw. A 1-1 score seems like the single most probable outcome on paper.
And it's a significant but.
But those machine learning models disagree a bit, with more leaning towards NYCFC. It just highlights that, even sophisticated analysis can point in slightly different directions.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to remember these are predictions. They're based on models, historical data, probabilities, not guarantees. Soccer games aren't played on spreadsheets.
Exactly. This is all for informational and entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
We're definitely not giving betting advice here.
For sure. And maybe that leaves us with a final thought, something for you, the listener, to chew on.
Yeah.
Given how incredibly close these probabilities are, and the fact the models don't fully agree, what do you think will be the deciding factor on the day? Could it be a moment of individual brilliance, a specific tactical adjustment, maybe dealing better with those injuries?
The human element, basically.
Yeah.
What the data can't easily predict.
Exactly. Something beyond the numbers that might just swing this very tight match one way or the other. Food for thought as you watch the game.